It started with a message, short, cold, and impossible to ignore. I was sitting in my office on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, reviewing financial reports for my company. Numbers, profits, bookings. Everything was exactly where it should be. Calm, controlled, successful. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my brother, David. I opened it, expecting something about his wedding. Maybe a last-minute update or a reminder. But what I read made me pause. Lisa, I've made my decision. Don't come to the wedding. Rachel and I don't want failures there. It will ruin the mood. This day needs to be perfect. I read it again. Slowly. Carefully. Just to make sure I hadn't misunderstood. Failures. That was the word he used for me. For a moment I didn't react. No anger. No sadness. Just silence. Then I leaned back in my chair, exhaled quietly, and turned my laptop toward me. If my brother wanted to talk about his perfect wedding, then I wanted to see exactly what that looked like. I opened our booking system. Typed in the name. Peterson Wedding. Saturday. Riverside Manor. As the details loaded, a small, almost ironic smile appeared on my face. Full-service package. Venue, catering, decoration, photography coordination, private bridal suite. Total cost $45,000. I stared at the screen for a second longer. Then I whispered to myself, almost amused. Of course it is. You see, David had spent the last 2 years planning what he called the perfect life. Perfect job. Perfect fiancé. Perfect wedding. And apparently a perfect guest list. One that didn't include his failure of a sister. What he didn't know, what no one in my family had ever bothered to ask, was that Riverside Manor wasn't just a venue I knew about. It was mine. I owned it. Not just that one. 12 restaurants. 6 event venues. Hundreds of employees. All under one company. Meridian Hospitality Group. But to my family, I was just Lisa. The one who worked in restaurants. The one who didn't follow the traditional path. No husband. No kids. No respectable career in their eyes. Just a failure. I closed the booking file slowly. Then picked up my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Patricia speaking. Her voice was calm, professional as always. Patricia, it's Lisa. Oh, good afternoon, Lisa. How can I help you? I turned my chair slightly, looking out the large window of my office. Outside, the gardens of Riverside Manor were being prepared. Flowers being arranged. Staff walking quickly with clipboards. Everything was moving perfectly for Saturday. Patricia, I said quietly, I need to talk about the Peterson wedding. Yes, everything is going very smoothly, she replied. The bride is very happy. We finalized the menu this morning. Is there something you'd like to adjust? There was a brief pause. Then I said it. I want you to cancel it. Silence. Complete silence. For a few seconds, I could almost hear her processing what I had just said. Cancel the wedding? She repeated carefully. Lisa, the event is in 3 days. I know. The flowers are ordered. The staff is scheduled. Catering preparations have already started. This is a $45,000 booking. I understand that, I replied calmly. I'll personally cover any losses. Another pause. May I ask why? She said gently. It's personal. My voice didn't change. Not even slightly. I need you to inform the client that Riverside Manor is no longer available for their wedding. Lisa, this will create a serious problem for them. Finding a venue this close to the date is nearly impossible. I looked outside again. At the perfect setup. At the place my brother thought would complete his perfect image. I'm sure they'll figure something out, I said. After the call ended, I placed my phone on the desk and sat there for a moment. Not angry. Not emotional. Just thoughtful. For 2 years, David had been building his dream. And at the same time, slowly making it clear that I didn't belong in it. Not successful enough. Not appropriate enough. Not perfect enough. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. David. I picked it up. Hello, Lisa. His voice was rushed, panicked. Something terrible just happened. I kept my tone neutral. What's wrong? Our wedding venue canceled on us, he said. 3 days before the wedding. Can you believe this? I blinked slowly. Oh no, I said softly. That's awful. It's Riverside Manor, he continued. We paid a huge deposit. Everything is planned around that place. Now they're saying they can't host us anymore. Did they give a reason? I asked. Something about scheduling conflicts, he said. It doesn't make sense. Of course it didn't. I let a small pause settle between us. Then he said something that almost made me smile. Lisa, you work in restaurants, right? There it was. The shift. I do, I replied. Do you know anyone in the event business? Anyone who might help us find a venue this Saturday? We're desperate. I leaned back in my chair again, and this time, I let the silence stretch just a little longer. David, I said slowly, you told me a few hours ago that you didn't want me at your wedding because I'm a failure. He didn't respond immediately. This is an emergency, he finally said. We can deal with that later. Right now, I just need your help. I nodded slightly, even though he couldn't see me. I see, I said. So now, I wasn't a failure anymore. Now, I was useful.
I stayed quiet for a moment, letting his words settle. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I wanted him to hear himself. David, I said calmly, help me understand something. What? He asked quickly, stress clear in his voice. A few hours ago, I was a failure who would ruin your perfect wedding. Now, I'm someone you're calling for help. Which one is it? Lisa, please, he said, frustrated. This is not the time for this. Isn't it? I replied softly. There was a pause. A long one. I said things I didn't mean, he finally muttered. Which part? I asked. The part where I'm a failure, or the part where you didn't want me there? Lisa, no, really, I continued, my tone still steady. Those are two very different things. He exhaled sharply. I was stressed, he said. Wedding planning, Rachel's family, everything is just a lot. I almost smiled. Stress. Such a convenient excuse. And stress made you decide your sister doesn't belong at your wedding? I asked. That's not what I meant, he replied quickly. You just don't fit the image we're trying to present. There it was. The truth. Clear. Honest. Ugly. Image. I repeated. Yeah, he said, more confident now. Rachel's family is very traditional. Her father is a doctor. Her mother is a teacher. They have certain expectations. And I don't meet them. I finished for him. You're different, Lisa. Different. Not wrong. Not bad. Just inconvenient. I see, I said quietly. Then I added, and what exactly do you think I do for a living? You work in restaurants, he said. Like management or something. Something, I repeated. It was almost impressive. All these years, and that was all he knew, or all he cared to know. David, I said, let me ask you something. Okay. If I was more successful than you think, would that change anything? What kind of question is that? He asked. A simple one, I replied. Would I suddenly fit your perfect image? It's not about money, he said quickly. Isn't it? No, he insisted. It's about lifestyle. Choices. You live alone. You work all the time. You're not settled. Not settled, I repeated. So that makes me a failure? That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said, I replied, my voice still calm, but sharper now. He went quiet again. Look, he said after a moment, we can talk about all this later. Right now, I need a solution. Do you know anyone who can help or not? I looked out the window again. The staff was still working, preparing a wedding that no longer existed. I might, I said slowly. His tone changed instantly. Hope. Relief. Really? Lisa, that would save us. Please, I'll owe you big time. I almost laughed at that. You already do, I thought. But instead, I said, let me make some calls. Thank you, he said quickly. Seriously, thank you. After I hung up, I sat there for a second. Then I picked up my phone again and called Patricia. Patricia? I said, the Peterson family is probably contacting other venues by now. I would assume so, she replied. They sounded quite shocked earlier. Good, I said. I want you to prepare a list of smaller venues that might have last-minute availability. Of course, she said. Though most high-end venues are fully booked months in advance. That's fine, I replied. Give them options, just not ours. There was a slight pause. Understood, she said. And, Patricia, yes. If they call back asking to reinstate their booking, the answer is no, she finished. Exactly. An hour later, my phone started lighting up. Message after message. Family. Of course. Lisa, I heard about the venue problem. Can you help? Your brother is in trouble. Families should support each other. Do you know anyone who can fix this? I read them all.
Slowly, carefully.
It was interesting how quickly things changed. This morning, I was an embarrassment.
Now,
I was a solution. That evening, David called again. This time, he sounded worse. Lisa, I've been calling places all day, he said. Everything decent is booked. I figured, I replied. The only places available are either too expensive or completely wrong for what we planned. That sounds stressful, I said. It's a disaster, he admitted. Rachel is crying. Her parents are already here. Guests are flying in from everywhere. I let him speak. Let him feel it. Then, he hesitated. Lisa, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you think Riverside Manor might reconsider? I raised an eyebrow, even though he couldn't see me.
You could always ask them, I said.
I did, he replied quickly. 3 times. They won't even discuss it. I murmured. Another pause. Then his voice lowered slightly. Lisa, you don't think this has anything to do with our conversation earlier, do you? There it was. The suspicion. I kept my tone light. What do you mean? I mean, it's just a strange coincidence, he said. They cancel right after we argue. I let out a small, quiet breath. David, I said, do you really think I have the power to make a high-end venue cancel your $45,000 wedding just because you hurt my feelings? When I said it like that, it sounded ridiculous, even to him. No, he said quickly. When you put it that way, it sounds crazy. It does, I agreed. But I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to, because the truth was already there. He just couldn't see it yet. Lisa, he said again, more carefully this time. Can I ask you something else?
Sure.
What do you actually do? I smiled slightly. Finally, the right question. What do you think I do? I asked. You work in restaurants, he repeated. But I don't know where. Or what exactly. And that never made you curious? I asked. I just assumed, he trailed off. Assumed what? I pressed. That it wasn't anything big, he admitted.
Of course he did.
David, I said slowly, what if I told you? I don't just work in restaurants. He didn't respond immediately. What do you mean? He asked. I leaned forward slightly, my voice calm, controlled, but now carrying weight. What if I told you? I own them. Silence. Complete silence. Own them, he repeated. Multiple restaurants. I continued. And event venues. Another pause. Longer this time. Lisa, are you serious? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I let the moment build. Let the realization start forming in his mind. And then quietly, clearly, I said, what if I told you the reason Riverside Manor canceled your wedding? I paused. Just for a second. Is because I told them to?
There was complete silence on the line. No breathing. No words. Just shock. Lisa, David finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you talking about? I didn't rush my answer. I'm talking about the fact, I said calmly, that I own Riverside Manor. Another pause. Longer this time. That's not possible, he said quickly. That place is worth millions. It is, I replied. Several million, actually. Lisa, stop joking, he said, his voice starting to shake. This isn't funny. I'm not joking. My tone didn't change. I own Meridian Hospitality Group. 12 restaurants. 6 event venues. Over 300 employees. Silence again. But this time it felt different. Heavy. Real. That means, he started slowly. You canceled my wedding? Yes. The word landed hard. You did this because of what I said, he asked. No, I replied. I did this because of what you believe. He didn't understand. I could hear it in his breathing. Lisa, I didn't know, he said quickly. If I knew. That's the problem. I cut in gently. You didn't know because you never cared to ask. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I'm really sorry. Are you? I asked. Yes. Of course I am. Are you sorry because you hurt me? I said slowly. Or because you just realized your failure sister owns the venue you need? He didn't answer. And that was the answer. Lisa, please, he said after a moment. We can fix this. Just tell me what to do. I leaned back in my chair again. Now, finally, we were having an honest conversation. Actions have consequences, David, I said. I understand. Do you? I asked. Because 3 days ago, you decided I wasn't good enough to stand at your wedding. I was wrong, he said quickly. About what? I asked. About me not being successful, or about thinking success defines someone's value? Both, he said. This time, he didn't hesitate. That mattered. I let a few seconds pass. Then I said, here's what's going to happen. Okay, he replied immediately. I will reinstate your wedding at Riverside Manor. His breath caught. Really? Lisa, thank you. I'm not finished, I said. He stopped. The wedding will go exactly as planned, I continued, but with one condition. Anything, he said. I will be there, I said. Not as a guest you feel forced to invite, but as your sister. Sitting with the family. Of course, he said quickly. Of course you will. And when people ask about your family, I added, you will introduce me properly. I will. You will say you're proud of me, I continued. Not because of money, not because of business, but because I'm your sister. I understand, he said, his voice softer now. And one more thing, I said. Anything. You're going to tell them I own the venue. He hesitated. I what? You heard me, I said. You spent months showing off this place. Now you get to tell everyone your sister built it. People will ask why I never mentioned it before, he said nervously. Then tell them the truth, I replied. That you never asked. He went quiet again. Okay, he said finally. I will. Saturday arrived. And everything was perfect. The gardens were flawless. The decorations elegant. The air filled with soft music and quiet excitement. Riverside Manor looked exactly the way it was meant to. But this time, it felt different. Because this wasn't just a wedding anymore. It was a lesson. I stood near the entrance as guests arrived. Watching. Listening. And then, I saw David. He walked toward me, nervous at first, then he smiled. A real smile. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then he turned as a group of guests approached. This is my sister, Lisa, he said confidently. She owns this venue, and the company behind it. There was a shift. You could feel it. Respect. Surprise. Curiosity. But I wasn't watching them. I was watching him. Because for the first time, he wasn't hiding me. Later, during the reception, Rachel's father came up to me. I hear you own this place, he said. I do, I replied. It's impressive, he said. Very impressive. Thank you, I said politely. Then I asked him something. If I didn't own this place, would you still think that? He paused. Thought about it. Then nodded slowly. Honestly? Maybe not at first, he admitted. But I would hope I'd correct that. I smiled slightly. That's fair. During his speech, David surprised everyone. He held the microphone, looking around the room. Then at me. I want to thank my sister, Lisa, he said. Not just for making this wedding possible, but for teaching me something important. The room went quiet. I thought success looked a certain way, he continued. I thought it meant fitting into a perfect image. He shook his head slightly. I was wrong. Then he looked directly at me. Lisa, I'm sorry. Not because of what you've built, but because I didn't see you clearly before. The room filled with soft applause. But I didn't care about that. Because this was real. Later that night, after most of the guests had left, we stood outside on the terrace. Why did you help me? He asked. I looked out at the empty garden. Then back at him. Because you're my brother, I said. And because people can learn, if they're willing to. He nodded. I was an idiot, he said. I smiled slightly. Yeah, I said. But you're my idiot brother. He laughed. And just like that, things felt lighter. 6 months later, they invited me again. Not for help. Not for a favor. But for a celebration. This is my sister, Lisa, David told his friends. She owns the company catering tonight, but more importantly, she's the one who taught me what family really means. And that was enough. Because success isn't just about money. Sometimes, it's about being seen. And sometimes, it's about teaching people how to see you.